But when we get the shocking news from the prostitute who comes out, or from the sex war,
you can say prostitute. It's 1880.
But when we get hold on.
Hooker.
Oh, horse.
Yeah.
Or
Billiard horse.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Chat the Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, then this is the podcast for you. I am one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me are my co-hosts, the King B.
You gonna hump him? You gonna hump him 1,000 times?
And Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And each week we take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you like to see all the movies we have covered, will cover, want to choose one for yourself, please visit shatpod.com and have a look. At the end of each podcast, we'll provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie take to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. That's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Lovecraft Country, Watchmen, and we are currently doing Westworld Season 4. Find all that information and past episodes at shatpod.com/TV. And finally, to hang out with us live, follow and subscribe to our Twitch channel, shatpod.com/Twitch, where we play video games, host watch parties, and edit this podcast live. All that being said, Big D, what movie are we reviewing tonight?
So, Gene, tonight we're heading out into a territory that hasn't always been that great to Shat the Movies, the Old West. It's been hit or miss. Some have been loved. Most have been kind of panned. And I think tonight might be a little bit different when one of our listeners, the great Scott H., decided to commission the 1992 Western, Unforgiven.
And I feel almost guilty doing this without Ash because Scott H. is our friend in Friendswood, Texas. And he writes in, "Hello, Shat Crew. Thanks for reviewing my commission for Unforgiven. My love from Westerns goes back to when my mom and I would watch Westerns on a Saturday afternoon when I was growing up. We only had 4 stations to choose from back then, and one station in particular would play Westerns. I fell in love with movies like Fistful of Dollars, The Cowboys, True Grit, and many more. So I was excited when I found out that Clint Eastwood was going to direct and act in Unforgiven in 1992. I saw it on opening night and it blew me away. I love the cinematography and the superb acting. I also love the struggle of William Munny between being good or going back to his former violent past. I have 5 posters in my movie room. Empire Strikes Back, reviewed December 17th, 2017. Fast Times at Ridgemont High, reviewed September 14th, 2020. The Breakfast Club, reviewed January 26, 2017, and Pulp Fiction, reviewed March 2nd, 2017. And my last poster is Unforgiven, which is being reviewed today. I hope you enjoy this Western as much as I do. I hope it scores better than Silverado. I really enjoy your podcast and also discussing music on Twitter with y'all. Y'all keep up the good work and go Astros. Scott H. in Friendswood, Texas."
Well, you know, Scott, I respect you so much as one of our supporters and the member of the community that I'm even not going to address the Go Astros. I'm going to say, you know, we can have our differences, and I will look past that obvious character flaw that you have and review this movie with an open and honest heart.
No host on this podcast has a movie room.
Well, I have 2 posters hanging up in the room that I do the podcast. The Incredible Shrinking Woman, an original Animal House, and then I have a reproduction of A Nightmare on Elm Street. So those are the 3 posters that don my pod room.
What do you qualify as a movie room?
Dedicated to watching film with physical copies of films in that room.
I mean, I lay on the couch in my living room. There's a VHS on the shelf over there, and I've watched more movies than anyone else in that room. That's a movie room, right?
Yeah, I would say prior to doing this podcast, your house and your living room is where I've watched most movies. So it's a theater. It's a landmark.
There you go.
Well, Unforgiven is a 1992 revisionist Western directed, produced by, and starring Clint Eastwood in the lead role. The film tells the story of William Munny, an aging outlaw and killer who takes on one more job years after he had turned to farming. The film co-stars Gene Hackman, Morgan Freeman, and Richard Harris. Unforgiven grossed over $159 million on a budget of $14.4 million and received widespread critical acclaim, winning 4 Academy Awards: Best Picture and Best Director for Clint Eastwood, Best Supporting Actor for Gene Hackman, and Best Film Editing for editor Joel Cox. The film was remade into a 2013 Japanese film, also titled Unforgiven, which stars Ken Watanabe and changes the setting to the early Meiji era in Japan. Eastwood has long asserted that the film would be his last Western.
Since then, he's come out with Cry Macho, The Mule, and I'm sure 1 or 2 other god-awful follow-ups to Gran Torino, but I would consider those Westerns.
Is Cry Macho the one where he goes to get the kid with the rooster and all the women are trying to fuck him?
No, The Mule is the one where he has not 1, but 2 threesomes.
Really?
With Mexican cartel prostitutes. There's 2 separate scenes in this fucking movie where a 90-year-old Clint Eastwood smuggling drugs for the cartel, is invited into the home of the cartel boss and makes love to 2 beautiful, fat-butted Mexican girls.
But wait, does he do it like well, or is this like an Al Pacino?
It's
hey,
like,
look
oh,
at me.
you're the best mule. Here are some ladies to keep you company. And he's just like, oh, well, ladies, it's real nice to have you. And they start to undress him, and then it fades away. He gets to fuck 4 fat butt, beautiful Mexican broads.
And once again, for our listeners out
at
there,
90 years old.
That is King B. This is Big D. Let's try to differentiate the voices.
Okay.
They're in Mexico.
You're married to a Brazilian.
No, I agree. I thought what you're saying, because the big butt comment, is that what your comment is here?
Anyway.
They call him the Mule because he's packing.
That's what I thought, yes.
Well, Big D, King B, we always ask where you were when you first saw the movie and what your memories are of it. We'll start with you, Big D. What do you remember about Unforgiven?
So I've probably said this on all the other Westerns we've done, but Hollywood has a history of finding a genre and then beating it to death in a short period of time. We got disaster movies. So you got like Armageddon, Deep Impact, or actually that's asteroid movies, but that's another genre. You have disaster movies like the 2012s or the
Day After Tomorrow.
Volcano.
Correct. And Westerns.
Pompeii.
Volcano 2, Magma Boogaloo.
Yes, well, yep. Dante's Peak, those are good ones. But the Western was probably my least favorite of the group because I couldn't tell them apart, I'll be honest with you. Other than Young Guns, I know the Young Guns films. And then you had Tombstone, Quick and the Dead, Wyatt Earp, to name a few. They all came out in like a short period of time. And what makes it even more complex for me is that a lot of them have the same actors. So you're like, oh, shit, Kevin Costner, who is he? Oh, is he a good guy, bad guy? Who is he? Oh, I don't know who these people are. So I never could tell the movies apart. Unforgiven, though, I know I watched it because this was my Blockbuster video days. And one of my assistant managers who had a crush on me, we had a little thing. Karen, if you're out there, I'm still thinking of you. She had access to the Academy Awards screeners, the tapes. So she would get them in, and her little selective circle of people who she trusted not to let them out. And I remember thinking, yeah, it's a Western. It's pretty. But watching it now, I had a little bit more appreciation for it.
You know, I never really dove into Westerns until my late 20s, just because I think I was kind of resentful of my upbringing. But when I did get into them, I was more into like the 60s era, the Magnificent Seven, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, etc. I think I finally decided to sit down and watch this one around 2010, and I did not like it upon my first viewing. In fact, I kind of reviled a lot of the later Clint Eastwood Westerns. The Pale Rider, the girl's shrill voice calling out to him at the end. Clint Eastwood, as much as I hate to say it, his later works really put a bad taste in my mouth.
Oddly enough, this might be the only Western I saw before the King B did, because I saw this back in the 90s. Because the King B, he introduced me to Butch Cassidy, Judge Roy Bean, Deadwood, and eventually his dad. So basically all the big cowboy influences in my life. And in 1992, I wasn't a big fan of Westerns, but I was on a pretty big Clint Eastwood kick and really wanted to see this like new modern take on the classic Western. And I remember being blown away by it as a kid.
And if you remember that the year this won the Best Picture, it was up against A Few Good Men. I think for a lot of years, people assume right away that they got it wrong. I don't know. I like this movie a lot. And I don't think it's as much as of a travesty watching it today that it won the Best Picture. I can see why people appreciated it. But we have a few good men coming up. So I think it'll be good at the end of those 2 reviews to kind of compare them and see whether or not we thought they got it right or wrong.
All right, with that, let's saddle up and hit the trailer.
Hey, boss! 2 more hogs got the fever.
Penny, why don't you help your brother out?
That one's sick too.
My guess is you're calling yourself Mr. William Munny.
You have me confused with someone else, mister.
You're the one who killed William Harvey and robbed that train over Missouri.
We'll talk inside.
You don't look no cold-blooded damn killer.
Maybe I ain't.
I'm heading up north, gonna kill a couple of no-good cowboys.
For what?
For cutting up a lady, cut up her face, cut her eyes out, cut her ears off. How about it, Will?
2 of them cowboys, isn't there? Better there's 3 of us. Ned Logan, he's my partner.
We ain't bad men no more. We're farmers. How long's it been since you fired a gun at the man, Will? 9, 10 years?
11.
They're paying $1,000 to whatever son of a bitch kills the 2 boys that cut up Delilah.
Tell them there ain't no whore's gold. Even if there was, or they wouldn't want to come looking for it.
With any luck, we'll find them by nightfall or in the morning. We can shoot them and head on back with the money.
Go, Davey!
Well, ain't you gonna shoot?
Shoot him down like the mangy scoundrel he is.
Brother, and I'm here to kill you. I'll see you in hell.
In 1880 Wyoming, a cowboy named Quick Mike slashes Delilah Fitzgerald's face with a knife, permanently disfiguring her. As punishment, local sheriff Little Bill Daggett orders Mike and his associate David Bunting to turn over several of their horses to Delilah's employer, Skinny Dubois, for his loss of revenue. Outraged, her fellow sex workers offer a $1,000 bounty for the cowboys' deaths. In Kansas, the Schofield Kid visits William Munny's failing hog farm, claiming to be an experienced bounty hunter looking for help pursuing the cowboys. Formerly an outlaw, Will is now a widower raising 2 children. He recruits his friend Ned Logan, and they catch up with the kid.
You know, this movie really hits the ground running. Yeah, the blood is that obvious sort of fake orangish red blood. There's a real lack of gore. The blood is just kind of painted in a line on the prostitute's face. But they really put you in the middle of the horror of this attack. And I guess that's possibly why it won an award for editing. When Little Bill enters the room after the attack and he asks the madam or the lead prostitute, is she going to die? And the lady responds with, she's going to live. Like it's even worse than dying. It's so subtle, but it's really chilling shit. Despite what I'm considering kind of a shabby lighting and the set here, this understated production, there's like a real immediate brutality, this visceral like harshness going on.
But I think the lighting's important because we're thrown right into it. Like you said, we don't know what's going on. We don't know who's getting attacked. We don't know who's with who. It is just chaos. And I think that really conveys just the violence of it, that we're aghast when like the light comes up and you can see her faces all cut up. I thought it was really effective use of lighting.
Yeah, and the cinematographer, Jack N. Green, he was noted for working so well in dark light. What's interesting is part of that dark lighting, you called it, King B, Clint Eastwood is very frugal. And so if he doesn't have to pay for fill lighting, he won't. And that's how they got by on such a small budget. And it kind of led to the ambiance here. But I want to highlight the difference between brutality and a body count, right? Because the opening scene establishes pretty quickly that big body counts weren't the norm in the Old West. It's kind of what we saw in like Young Guns. But here, it's more focused on that violence. Is there violence? Yes. Did the Old West have injustice? Absolutely. But Quick Mike doesn't kill Delilah. And Skinny doesn't just show up and blow Quick Mike's brains out. This minor amount of restraint makes the killing later in the film so much more impactful because you realize it's not an everyday thing. And Little Bill's way of settling the situation of Delilah's face being cut, he orders the cowboys to pay 7 ponies for mutilating her face. And I thought, wow, shit, that must be a lot. Like, it's old times. 7 ponies. Wow. That seems like the closest to justice we're going to get in the Wild West. So I did the math on it. In 1880, a horse is worth $60, which is like $1,700 today. So what we're talking about is like $12,000 for slicing the shit out of a woman's face. I think that's getting off a little light.
Okay, let's take a step back. I agree with you to start with. But if a pony is worth $60 and the prostitute gets $1 a poke, she's probably giving 80 cents of that dollar to Skinny. That's 20 cents a poke. Now, that's a lot of pokes for $60. Granted, she's not the recipient of the ponies. Yeah, it's a very thin economy, but it makes sense.
But to that point, let's talk about that. If a prostitute is only making 20 cents a poke, what I don't understand is why are these women willing to spend $1,000 that they earned as prostitutes just to see 2 men killed a year later? Like, how is that remotely satisfying?
Well, they's people too, ain't they?
Once you're victimized and nothing happens, I think the likelihood of violence happening again, plus you're right, they're just pissed off. I'm surprised they didn't try to have, Skinny killed or the sheriff, bundle it all together, get a discount for $1,000. You could have gotten the 4. I think so. But this start, it's kind of difficult to figure out who's right, who's wrong. Let's judge this by the time, right? Little Bill, what he's doing, it's hard to judge because we can see here that Big Whiskey, it's a prosperous town. It doesn't seem to have many problems that all the other cities do. And he does something here. If he kills the 2 cowboys, how does that help anyone? It doesn't help Skinny. It doesn't help the sex workers other than with getting vengeance. This is a business decision that is trying to balance things out. He should have whipped the cowboys because I think that may have placated some of the women if you would hurt them equally.
Well, I agree and I don't. I don't believe it's a very prosperous town. It could be, but it's up to Bill. If he wants to stay on top of this and make it a prosperous town, it has to be friendly to industry. And there are 2 healthy bodies that work and spend money in that town.
Agreed.
More money comes into the town. A whooping, the way Bill is able to give one out, would put them out of work for some time. Less wages, less money coming into the town. It's a very cold economic decision.
And Big D, to speak to your opinion of the wisdom of Little Bill's actions, I mean, to my surprise, the dudes did show up and did pay up. I mean, so he was right on that account. I didn't expect him to ever come back.
Well, I think it's because we're so used to the Old West where every answer was, hey, I'm going to shoot it out. We're going to meet out in the middle of the street. The Old West wouldn't have functioned. You needed some law and order. And I believe that people followed the general letter of the law so that they showed up. They even went above and beyond. They tried to make it right and give the best of the lot to the victim of the crime. If she had sold that horse, that was at least an effort to show good faith.
Well, the accomplice attempted to make things right. He was the one that had a little bit more of a moral compass. He was filled with regret, remorse, and some self-loathing. Saved the best pony of the lot. Probably worth $70.
Yeah, that's how many pokes, B? What's that equal to?
20 cents a poke. I got fucking size. I don't have my abacus on me. I owe you a poke. How about that?
I think probably 140 pokes, or what was it?
140 pokes?
Who knows?
No, well more. Okay, listen. All right, now we're going to sit down and figure this out. $70, 20 cents a poke. 70 times 5. That's 7 times 5 is 30. 350 pokes. Let's say she gets one in. That's a whole year of fucking.
Yeah, if you take like Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Easter off.
Yeah.
Vacation.
There you go.
Anyway.
Is it my turn?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So guys, the reason I really hated this movie the first time I saw it, and it's totally a misguided animosity towards this film, is this James Woolvit's performance as the Schofield Kid. I'd never heard of him before. He doesn't do very much after. I think his most notable role after this would be in the White Fang television series. He's so grating to watch. Even the sound of his voice on screen just drove me up a wall. But later, I'm going to come to realize that he's the most genuine performance in this film. Every other actor in this movie shows up and plays themselves. James shows up and he is 100% like the elemental version of a shitty dude who's read trash fictionalizations of outlaws his whole life. He's too fucking dumb to see through the fallacy of all of it. He's an absolute loser. He literally is the first incel. It's brilliant, really. It's an amazing performance.
I felt like it was like Emilio Estevez, like Billy the Kid. It was that level of annoying performance, but it immediately turns when you pick up that Bill and Ned, they see through the bullshit. They see through it. There is no fooling them. And they immediately start to dissect this bravado. The only way that an old person can do, a grizzled old Western frontierman, a true badass, and they don't call him out on it. They just let him say things that they immediately then trap him in, and the truth is revealed on its own. So Will Munny is obviously the badass of the group, at least in his past and younger days. And when I was a kid, I would see these movies that have, oh, the wife who saved the husband. She made him a better man. And countless movies would do this. And as a kid, I always thought it was kind of a joke. I was like, this doesn't really happen. But as I've aged and I found my savior, the one who made me a better person, I can say this does exist. But there's a limit to that power. The limit to that power is when a person is in your life and that you want to make those changes. Because let's not confuse it. Will is a bad man. He's a bad man in the beginning. He's a bad man in the middle. He's a bad man at the end. I mean, for God's sakes, he leaves his children unguarded on a frontier, like, separating hogs. God knows what's going to happen if somebody comes upon them, if they're going to maybe get sick. We see it happens. Or what happens if he doesn't come back? He does nothing that doesn't serve him first. So even though he was saved by this power of love, I don't think it's anything that's stuck, and we should expect it to fade away.
I'm going to submit to you that I don't believe he was saved by a power of love, that he simply reserves the things that he's good at for the people who deserve the things he's good at. And when I say good at, I mean being a killer. The woman that purported to love him and give him children, he's never going to be cruel to her because she's not in that world. The children aren't in that world. He told them they could kill a chicken if they had to. They're fucking set, dude.
I read the situation a third way. Much like when bad men turn to God, I think Will wanted to be something different. And Claudia, his wife, was just a symbol that he imbued with the power to change him, right? Because when he recites the things that she taught him, it's like he's reading it out of a book. It's not like coming from his soul, right? And so I think he wanted to be something different. He lived at something different for a while, but in the end, we see he's still the same Will.
Agreed.
And after these three saddle up, the movie starts to drag a little bit. It suffers from the same lazy pacing as Silverado. And Ash talked about how long people stare at each other in Silverado, how we have to watch people ride from one place to another. I can only watch guys ride across the prairie for so long before wondering why I'm watching guys ride across the prairie. But you can't deny that the cinematographer who I mentioned before, Jack N. Green, deserved this movie. The landscapes, they're incredible. Like when Little Bill is standing on Main Street and you can see that snow-covered mountains in the distance, it's fucking gorgeous. The low light shots, gorgeous. And there's a moment when Ned is in his home and he makes the decision to join the hunt. And he walks in the living room and there above his head is his Spencer rifle and he's framed perfectly with it. And you know before that man says a word that he's decided to kill again.
Yeah, but I mean, let's be honest. This scenery isn't hard to make look beautiful. I mean, there's been countless movies who do it. You get sunset out there going out over like the rocks. It's gorgeous. Or you get the open plains. We've seen it 1,000 times before, but this feels different. When they're out there and there's a wind, I could feel it like cutting through my clothes. When they're in the rain, I could feel wet. There was something different about it. Yeah, it's beautiful, but it never felt forced. It never felt like Silverado. Hey, it's a time. Let's do a traveling montage. Beautiful sunset. It didn't feel like that. It felt like nature, dare I say, was in a natural environment. It was just there. You watch these characters having a conversation and your eyes would just naturally go to the landscape. So it felt great.
Also, I think we only saw one glass broken in this movie.
Ooh, I wish I'd counted. I didn't even think of that.
And no vases. Well, back in Big Whiskey, gunfighter English Bob arrives in town with his biographer, W.W. Beauchamp, and seeks the bounty. Little Bill and his deputies disarm Bob, and the sheriff beats him savagely to discourage other would-be gunmen from attempting to claim the bounty. Beauchamp sticks around out of fascination with the sheriff, who debunks many of the romantic notions Beauchamp has about the Wild West. Little Bill explains to Beauchamp that the best attribute for a gunslinger to have is to be cool-headed under fire, rather than to have the quickest draw, and to always kill the best shooter first.
So I really enjoy that. I think the movie breaks from a lot of the Western traditional formulas. First, our protagonists, they're not the good guys. And it's not only that they're not the good guys, they're not specifically skilled right now. And they seem to be on this mission where they're going to go and find the big bad. And when we're introduced to English Bob, I'm like, oh shit, okay, here it is. Here's who we're going to have the big collision at the end. And the movie spends a great deal of time. They're building up Bob. We see him on the train. He's shooting quail. It's not just his words, but he is demonstrating that he is a great shot. He's got his biographer there who's backing it up. So even Little Bill's deputies question whether the sheriff is afraid to come and face Bob. Little Bill then painstakingly deconstructs the Duke of Death, and we realize, holy shit, this isn't just a shitty carpenter sheriff. This is the wolf in sheep's clothing. He is the one who is actually formidable and will be the big bad at the end that our protagonists are going to have to overcome.
This movie is filled with killers. And I think that you can kind of grade or try to rank them as this is the baddest guy or that's the baddest guy. They're all bad. They're all killers, just of slightly different personalities, slightly different flavors. They all recognize each other. They know all each other's foibles and failures. That's how Little Bill is able to point out and see through all the bullshit that English Bob is heaping on everyone else to impress them. William Munny, he's the baddest of them all. He's the first, the last, the one everyone knows is the killer of women and children. He's the Coca-Cola of killers. Little Bill, he's Pepsi-Cola, just as formidable, just to taking a different route. He's okay with number 2. He's doing his own thing. English Bob, you see this coming a mile away. Royal Crown Cola. It's, the look on Gene's face right now. You know what I mean? He is a killer, but he's a killer of opportunity. He's a coward. He's full of bluster. He's nobody's first pick. And you could go on, and every one of these killers has their own distinct way about them. They all have their very distinct character traits, but they are, at the end of the day, they're all the same fighter class. They're murderers.
Big D, you talked about that dissection that Little Bill does of these different fighters and these histories that he tells. That all happens in this jail scene with English Bob and W.W. Beauchamp. And jail scenes normally in movies are templated time fillers. I mean, think about Silverado and how shit those jail scenes were. Even with Kevin Costner, he couldn't save him. But the time that Bill and Bob spend in the jail, best part of the movie. Gene Hackman delivers that Corky Corcoran story so perfectly, you feel like you were there. It's so vivid. And that suspense is delicious as he first has W.W. Beauchamp and then English Bob take that loaded gun. You don't know what's going to happen. You figure someone's going to die. And in the end, we all just learned a lesson. This is the stuff of a superior Western. I also want to clear up a misconception about this scene. People see Little Bill drop the shells out of the revolver, and there's one missing, and they think that he handed them an unloaded gun. That is not true.
No.
The chamber that was empty was the chamber that the hammer was currently on. So if the hammer was pulled back, then it's ready to fire. So he didn't like have a gun stashed away just for tricks like this.
Yeah, for those who are not in the know, they didn't have great safeties on pistols back then. And if you were to drop that gun, the hammer typically rests right on the fire pin. And any kinetic force pushed through that hammer sufficiently would fire a round off. So at a 6-shot revolver, they always let the hammer sit on an empty chamber. So yeah, 5 rounds. At the end, when he looks at Bob and says, "You were right not to take it, Bob. I'd have killed you." It's not badassery in that line. To me, that's love and care for a fellow human being.
Love and care. No, I think that was just the ultimate badass fucking display of control. Because you could see that Bob was questioning, is it unloaded? Would he give me an unloaded gun? If I take it and I actually fire and there's no rounds in it, then he's going to shoot me. So when he doesn't take the move, he is now emasculated. I think he said, you know what? You had your chance and you were afraid. You were that guy who couldn't pull the trigger.
Like I said, I really feel that Little Bill is very pragmatic about who he is. He's a sort of elder statesman of murderers. And English Bob is kind of a fraud and a coward, but he's still part of his tribe. And one less of his tribe is a world that he doesn't maybe want to live in. I really saw tenderness in it. I don't think it's just a straight up punk. I really want to look at these heroes and these villains of this movie, because I feel that they're all the same. They're manipulative. They're all moody. They're narcissistic. They're abusers. Like, how are we identifying with these movies?
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head in that statement. That the answer is right there. The reason we romanticize the West is the reason that we marveled at Gladiators. We're all bystanders. A lot of guys want to be ringside. That's us. But few are ready to step into the ring like these guys. And as you said, King B, that's why I think there is a kinship between these guys, because they recognize real.
You wouldn't step into the streets?
No, with fucking gunfighters, fuck that.
No.
You've seen my motor skills? You've seen my shooting skills? How dare you ask me that question?
Do you think I would step into the street?
Yes. Give me that microroni out and just start waxing.
No, you'd be dead. I'd be in the city. I'd be working some shitty factory job, but at least I'd be alive. No way.
You'd be like, I'm going to release some sawdust into this barn, and then I got this TNT.
Come on down to Big D's Haberdashery for all your fine hat needs.
Yes, I would go to San Francisco and sell dry goods. That's what I would do.
I'd be operating the Mechanical Turk. Look at the exotic man. Will, Ned, and the kid arrive in town during a rainstorm and head into Skinny's saloon. While Ned and the kid are upstairs, a feverish Will is sitting alone when Little Bill and his deputies confront him. Bill confiscates Will's pistol, beats him, and allows him to crawl out into the rain. Ned and the kid escape through a back window and take Will to an unoccupied barn outside of town. A few days later, the trio ambush and kill Davy in front of his friends. Ned realizes that he does not want to kill again and resolves to return home.
So, as someone, I have basic land nav skills, probably better than 90% of the population, but I marvel at the ability for people to track animals and others. And thankfully in the movie, we didn't get like the token Native American tracker who's using some like spirit realm to help guide to find these two guys, you know. But they're basically given like a really low level description of Davy and Quick Mike, accompanied by what I can best describe as Emma or a child's sketch of two random cowboys. Okay. I imagine in my head now, it's okay. They're going to have a hat. They both have facial hair. They have eyes, a mouth, and they look kind of dirty. That's about it. That's all they give. And these guys go out there. There is no way you can confidently identify two men unless they said, yes, that's me. And I'm just wondering out West, how many innocent people were killed that they'd come up with one of these half-ass sketches and be like, you look like Black John. You're guilty of killing that whole family out on the frontier. No, that wasn't me. That wasn't me. So what I would do if I wanted to survive the Old West, I would maybe add some kind of fashion accessory or a style choice, which could easily not be confused with somebody else. Maybe a mohawk. Maybe I would have peacock feathers in my hat or wear purple boots or even a gold pistol just to be safe. So they couldn't come out and be like, oh, you look like, oh, wait, you got a gold pistol? That ain't in the description. Oh, there's peacock feathers. No, we're looking for somebody else. That's how I survived the Old West.
Yeah, you want to look for the guy that's 6'5" and well fed in the Western frontier. Give me a fucking break. You're not hard to find. Bro, Quick Mike, he had a tiny pecker. Yeah. And they killed him in the outhouse with his pants down. I'm pretty sure they got the right guy.
Oh, that's true. That is true.
I mean, the absolute dog shit quality of these sketches reminded me of that proto-meme internet video of the Alabama leprechaun. You know, if you see a leprechaun, say yeah.
Yeah.
Quick Mike's big mistake was probably holding up in a ranch surrounded by dudes intended to protect him. Otherwise, he looks like half the people in Big Whiskey. You basically just went home and then said, gee, try and find me.
So, yeah, when they go and kill Davy, everyone's characters really start showing through. Ned is worn out. He just doesn't have that cutthroat fire in him. William shouting to the ranchers, just bring him some water. God damn it. We ain't going to shoot. He's tired of arguing with these amateurs. Like, We came here to do a job. You guys are slowing us down. Pull your heads out of your asses. Clearly, they're angry they're dealing with amateurs. I love that they wouldn't begrudge an enemy just a little bit of respite. Even Little Bill doesn't want to kill these guys until he has to. Game respects game.
There is a depth to this movie that is surprisingly shown in moments like these. That drawn-out death of Davy Bunting, it really highlighted the lack of justice in this entire tale. I mean, you mentioned, King B, Davy was an accomplice in the sense he rushed into the room while Quick Mike was mutilating Delilah. But Mike said, I'm going to cut off her tits if you don't hold her. And as soon as he saw what was happening, he tried to stop Mike. And then, like you said, when they delivered the ponies, he saved the best for Delilah personally, and he tried to make amends. And no matter how revolting that is and how we understand that can't possibly make it right, he tried, and all he got for that was getting gut shot and begging for water while dying slowly.
Well, I think we can blame that on the working ladies of the saloon. They were there. They witnessed it. Nobody else knows what happened. They could have said, hey, he tried to help. But instead, they just lumped them together. I agree. I don't think we need justice for Davy. But those ladies should have said, hey, thank you for trying at least. Without you there, she's dead.
When we watch Scream for the podcast, we learned the rules of surviving a slasher film. You never have sex. You never drink. You never do drugs. And you never say, I'll be right back. The Western equivalent of those rules is never, ever head out alone to go home. The moment Ned said he was heading back south because he didn't have the heart to kill anymore, I'm like, oh, fuck, this guy's a goner. Don't do it. If you're in a Western, stick with your guys.
You know that Little Bill it's capable. He could do it. But we certainly didn't expect to get Ned's death to be something off screen. You got Morgan Freeman here. This is a big movie. We expect we're going to see it. But when they're out and they're going to get their payment, and the working lady of the brothel comes out there and she gives, fuck, you made me do that. And they're sitting out there and they're waiting to get their money, and the prostitute comes out and she reveals, yeah, Ned? No. They basically tied him up. They beat him to death. They tried to get information about you. I just found myself kept expecting like the trope, like we're going to get a jailbreak. They're going to go tie a rope around the jail cell. They're going to pull it out. There's going to be a shootout, or Emilio Estevez is going to tumble salt off the roof into a barrel. None of that came. It was just a stark reality of Ned was dead. It was their fault. And now what are you going to do?
Well, feeling they must finish the job, Will takes the kid with him to the Cowboys ranch, directing him to ambush Quick Mike in the outhouse and shoot him. After they escape, a distraught kid drunkenly confesses he had never killed anyone before and renounces his life as a gunfighter. Will and the kids soon learn that Ned was captured and tortured to death by Little Bill and his men after revealing Will's true identity. The kid gives Will his revolver and returns to Kansas with the reward, giving equal shares to both Ned's widow and Will's children. Will heads back to Big Whiskey to take revenge on Little Bill.
Big D, to address your notion about being disappointed that we don't get to see Morgan Freeman die on screen, he's too dignified an actor to give you a death rattle. You're never going to see him going poop, and you're never going to see him die on screen. But to me, I think the real prize in this movie is Gene Hackman. That guy is a natural force. The line he gives while he's beating on Ned, he goes, and when their lies ain't the same as your lies, well, I ain't going to hurt no woman, but I am going to hurt you, and not gentle like before, but bad. Some of this dialogue is really the genesis that begat Deadwood. It's reminiscent of that line from Cy Tolliver where he's threatening Joni. He goes, this is how I want to be touching you, gentle like. Don't make me want to do it different.
When I was a kid, I thought Little Bill was an absolute psychopath. As an adult, I see him totally differently. I think he's a pretty good sheriff. Mm-hmm. When you view things from his perspective, you realize that he was trying to prevent things from escalating. Like we said earlier in the podcast, he's trying to build this into a prosperous town. You had a horrible assault on a woman. That's true. But nobody had to die for it. And he resolved the issue to the best of his ability, even finding a way for the attacker to pay her employer so she could continue to make a living as a bartender. She's not out on the street. They didn't get rid of her. But then the women of the saloon, they escalated things. They placed a bounty that started to attract interstate killers into the town.
Yes, yeah.
And then what does Bill do? He tries to disarm them. And of course, all of them are difficult about it. Then he's got 2 murders on his hands suddenly, and he captures one of the guys responsible. This guy's doing his best.
Yeah, well, listen, if the movie was flipped, if Little Bill was the protagonist, he would be the hero. We would look at him in a completely different light. But Gene, you just made me think. Little Bill, he screwed up. Why was there no murder for hire charge? If you charge these ladies, the first time that you get somebody in there, an assassin, you know they're doing it. They're admitting that they're doing it. If you put 2 of them on trial, let's go hang 2 of the working ladies. Then it ends.
Now, I'm no frontier lawman, but everything you're bringing up is hearsay. I see no contracts. I have seen no witnesses. And any purported assaulters or murderers lie dead. Clearly, these women cannot be charged. I rest my case.
Let's get back to Ned. In case you've never seen Morgan Freeman, he's black.
Yeah.
And the entire time Ned is hunting down the cowboys who cut up Delilah, I'm thinking, oh no, like I hope they don't capture Ned, a black bounty hunter in 1880 Wyoming. I was so worried for him. Oddly enough, Unforgiven never brings up Ned's race. His woman's race? Sure, he brings it up himself. But there isn't a single racial slur or racist violence directed toward Ned. And I wanted to get your opinion on it, guys. Is this historically ridiculous, or is this intended to be equitable revisionism?
Okay, so now King B is the Western lawyer. I'm not a Western historian, so I don't know. But I found myself thinking it's highly unlikely that Ned walked into that bar, sat down, had a drink, went upstairs, got a free one, then got caught, beaten, whipped, and nobody said the obvious thing. No one. I think they left it out on purpose, and I felt it. If you remember Silverado with Danny Glover didn't step more than 2 feet into the saloon before he got a "we don't serve your kind." There would have been one thrown just naturally, and I think the absence of it is a flaw in the film.
All right. How about this? Bass Reeves, Lord Bowler. These are all African-American gunfighters or lawmen or bounty hunters who were feared, respected, and very notable characters of the West. Now, I'm not saying they weren't immune to racism, but in a town where killers are known to roll through and everyone's money is green, I don't see them throwing Ned that much flack.
Yeah, but Ned's not a hot, young, gunslinger. He looks like an old farmer, like beaten down. If anybody's going to get a racial catcall, it's him.
He came in the middle of the night at a very tumultuous time in that town. Boy, you're going to bet your life on it? Maybe just take his money.
So you think all the ladies were okay with it? Not one of them had a problem?
I bet one of them was very okay with it.
I bet she probably was. But to get to a point in this movie now where I felt like it was really powerful and it was different from the other superficial Westerns we've gotten, it's the moment after, the outhouse killing, and the kid, he's trying to come to terms with the fact that he's taken a life. And it was powerful. Everything, the bravado we had gotten before, this persona that the kid had portrayed, it is all just falling array to the floor. And I loved it. He's tried so hard to convince everyone, including himself, that he's a bad man. And it is stripped away, and he's sitting there broken. And he's trying to face this reality of what he's done. Then Will says, "It's a hell of a thing, ain't it, to kill a man? You take everything he's got and everything he's gonna have." And he tries to ask, was it justified what we did? I guess he had it coming. And Will's response is, "We all got it coming, kid." And it was just such an impactful moment where you can see this kid, he's broken. He said, "I'm going to get my glasses. I'm never picking up a gun again." It's changed his life. And I felt like it was one of those turns that made the performance in the beginning be, like you said, that much more impressive, that he went from that superficial, cheesy, gunslinger, pompous kid to this broken man, and they did it in 2 hours along with everything else he did. I think it was a great performance in the movie.
Clint Eastwood does this amazing job of walking that fine line between being somewhat understanding, but not being gratuitously soft on this. This kid says he's never killed anybody before, and Will's response is, well, you sure killed the hell out of that fella today. It's somewhat congratulatory. It's like the slightest pat on the back, but also casting judgment in a sense at the same time about how ridiculous this breakdown is. It's just really well done. And this is where we see Will revert to true form. Throughout the movie, Will explains that drinking was the fuel to his killing and that he gave it up when he fell in love with his late wife, Claudia. So when we finally see him take that swig of whiskey, I'm like, oh shit, it's on. And Clint Eastwood does this really smart thing. He basically just recites his lines in the movie until this moment. He talks about how treating animals poorly is a sign of weakness. He's just reciting that he's not the outlaw that he was before. He's just repeating that. It all sounds like lines he was taught. But once he reverts to his old ways, we get Western kick-ass lines. The man just comes alive.
Yeah, booze is his like spinach for Popeye. He gets it. You see him power up, and he's...
It's like you with your Greeno Piggio.
Yeah, it is.
Will arrives in town and sees Ned's corpse displayed in a coffin. Will walks into Skinny's saloon alone and uses his first shot to kill Skinny. He holds Little Bill at gunpoint, and the sheriff instructs his men to kill Will after Will shoots him. The shotgun misfires. Will throws it at Little Bill, draws a revolver, shoots Little Bill, and calmly kills 3 of Bill's deputies as their panicked shots miss him. Will leaves Big Whiskey, warning the townsfolk that he will return if Ned is not buried properly or if any more women are harmed. During the epilogue, a title card states that Will and his children abandoned their farm and are rumored to have moved to San Francisco, prospering in dry goods.
So before I'd mentioned that I like the fact that it's a more grounded Western. We don't have the typical tropes of like the stampeding cattle or the jailbreak or the robbing the train. But we do get a little something here that it was kind of like the end of Young Guns. I don't know how likely it is that Will is going to walk out of this situation. He's outnumbered. It's probably 25, 30 to 1. He has got 2 shots in the barrel. And what makes it okay for me is that it doesn't seem like Will thinks he's getting out of this either. He didn't come in there to survive. He came in there with one purpose. And he is just delivering badass line after badass line. And he says, any man who don't want to get killed better clear out on back. And half the room is like gone. Nobody wants anything to do with this man because now he's admitted to killing women and children. He's threatening to kill everyone's family. Bill is there pleading on the ground that he deserves a better death. And he is, like you said, Gene, he is stone cold killer. He says, deserves got nothing to do with it. And I'm like, is he going to not shoot him? Bam. He just shoots him again and kills him. And, all of a sudden he's invincible, but I'm okay with it because it fits his character and I'm 100% on board.
This shootout is so smart. It's never established that Will Munny is a particularly good shot. If you think about it, this guy's primary weapon is a 10-gauge double-barrel shotgun. Not exactly a sharpshooter. And his original sidearm that he carries, it's a Star 1858 Army percussion revolver. It's a little antiquated by 1880, right? And that tells us 3 things are likely in this shootout. 1, like I said, Will, not a sharpshooter. 2, he probably fought for the Union in the Civil War, and he knows how to stay cool in combat. And 3, the saloon shootout is his natural habitat. It's a setup that benefits him. And this is the cool part. The story that I tell myself about this shootout is that Little Bill, remember, he took Will's revolver away the night that he beat the shit out of Will. Will replaced that revolver with the Schofield Kids revolver, a brand new, shiny, state-of-the-art revolver. I'm imagining it has a better trigger pull, better accuracy. It's a hot shot of a gun. And in that sense, it was almost justice for that beatdown. You took his original gun away, he's going to kill you with the new one.
Yeah, and I also got the vibe that there was some other people killed in the crossfire. That in that tight room, it's not like you're out on the street and it's going to be a duel where you have to hit your target from a decent range. When chaos broke out, he shot a couple, 1, 2, 3, they went down, and then it was gunfire all around and he came out unscathed. And I love that the biographer says, oh, is it true you always go for the first most talented gunslinger? And then he goes, I'm just lucky at killing.
Yeah, the best part was that he fucking shot Skinny first.
Yes.
Skinny wasn't armed. Well, he should have armed himself.
Should have armed himself.
Am I the only one who thought he was going to shoot the biographer when he said, I'm unarmed. And he said, pick up the rifle.
I mean, they wanted you to think that, but of course he's not gonna. The guy's harmless. There's a certain deserved mythology to this movie. As King B mentioned, unless you count Cry Macho and
The Mule.
This was Clint Eastwood's final Western. And at the time, it was supposed to be his final Western. It was considered a eulogy for the spaghetti Western, which is a genre that he basically triggered, with the first three movies. Eastwood is at that perfect age in 1992 to play this role. Just old enough at 62 to look ready to hang up his spurs, but just virile enough for one more fight and I guess a couple of threesomes. And maybe I'm just crazy, but you can sort of feel that in Will Munny's journey and that final shootout. It does transcend logic, Big D. Like, that man should not walk out alive. It gives you all the fuck yes moments that make this style of a Western shine. And it's a case of the right movie at the right time.
Now, I know this is a weird thing to be rankled by, but I've always been super fucking annoyed by fictional movies with text epilogues. The ending of this movie, just before the credits roll, you get that little text up there that says, Mom never did go visit her dead daughter until a few years later, and when she finally did, they had all moved. Why the fuck do I give a fuck at this point? Do you know what I just saw? Do I give it's a distraction, it's annoying, and I have no idea what the purpose of epilogues to fictional movies are. I'm offering a King B bounty for a list of all fictional movies with text epilogues at the end. Why did they do this? What did it do for you guys?
And before anybody writes in, I got to explain. We understand that the point was that this woman married a man of ill repute. Her family didn't agree with that marriage. He loved her. He was good to her. He took care of the kids. And when she died, he buried her. He tried to keep the farm going, and he moved away. And when they come to see them and see her grave, it just looks like this bad man took off with the kids and abandoned this woman to her death, and they don't even know how she died, right? We get that. The point is, who cares?
Yeah, it's got nothing to do with the story. It doesn't add any depth to Munny's character. I didn't need the prologue, let alone the epilogue.
Yeah, honestly, this movie should have ended with Will Munny in the sights of the deputy's rifle while he's walking in the rain, and then end scene, right? Does he shoot? Does he cower? Who knows? You can decide for yourself.
And as someone who struggles at reading quickly, okay, like people on Instagram, when you do like your reels or whatever those things are, and you put up the text for like 0.2 seconds, I can't read it, people. Give me some more time. This at the end, I'm struggling. I'm like, oh shit, hold on. And it's already 2 lines up. Give me at least all across the screen and slow it down, people.
Pro tip, Big D, you can just hold your thumb on the story and it'll pause. You can read it.
Shut up. I'm going to try that right now. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good thing I don't work in social media.
And on TikTok, you just tap it.
Oh, I always thought like when you hit it that it kind of went to the next one. Let's see.
That's if you swipe it or tap it.
No, if you tap it, it goes to the next one. I've never really held it.
Yeah, it goes, yeah.
But that doesn't work in the movie, Gene, so that's a bigger problem.
Man, someday they're going to have some sort of a button that gives pause.
While you guys were having this conversation, I decided to do a little quick Googling. There is one fictional movie epilogue that I absolutely approve of, and it's the end card for Barry Lyndon. It's a quote. It says, "It was in the reign of George III that the aforesaid personages lived and quarreled. Good or bad, handsome or ugly, rich or poor, they are all equal now." Has nothing to do with this podcast. Probably get edited out. Thanks for listening.
Now is the time in the podcast where we give our wipe scores for Unforgiven. The wipe score is our way of telling you how many wipes this movie would take to get out of your respective butts. 0 wipes is a perfect movie. It is unlimited free ones from the ladies of Skinny's Saloon. And 5 wipes is an absolute disaster of a movie, is getting gut shot on a sunny day while you're just trying to do your job on the ranch.
It's been a long time since I had some free ones.
Big D, we'll start with you. What's your wipe score for Unforgiven?
So, Gene, I know I'm going to get called on this, and I know I gave Silverado 3 wipes, and I complained that it was as boring as playing Red Dead Redemption and running some side missions. This movie, I know, it is simultaneously, it's slower paced, but yet I found more engaging. I guess what I like is less explosions and train robberies and cattle rustling. I like the grounded story of just good, old, weathered characters who aren't black or white. There's no good or bad. And a story that's simpler and grounded. I loved it. I thought it was beautiful. I couldn't believe, but then I'm going to say that right now I could see how this would win over A Few Good Men. Now, once we watch A Few Good Men coming up soon, I may feel different, but it is nearly perfect for me. I think it's a 0.75 white movie and a pleasant surprise from what I expected.
All right, that's 3/4 white from Big D. King B, what do you got?
It still sticks out to me that the set is a bit shabby. It feels small. I understand that maybe that adds some charm. It's very minimalist. The blood makeup, the scar makeup is pretty weak, but your performances are just home runs, every one of them. The Schofield kid really has a huge character arc. You get to be there for every step of it. Morgan Freeman is fantastic at being Morgan Freeman. Will Munny is the prototypical Western killer hero. And Gene Hackman, just every line, just chewing it up and knocking it out of the park. The guy is such a pro. The movie is put together so well. The dialogue, the plot. I love it all. I think it's well ahead of its time. It's clearly a modern classic. Half a wipe.
All right, it's half a wipe from King B and 3/4 white from Big D. I hate to rain on the parade, and I know this is blasphemy, but I liked Young Guns better. The pacing was better. The characters were more engaging. The story was more interesting. And it's just more memorable in general. In trying to draw those parallels and assign those archetypes, I think Unforgiven unfortunately ventured into the territory of unrelatable and sort of flat characters. With the exception of English Bob, Will Munny, and the real star, Little Bill, who did make this movie worth watching, I think it's slightly better than average at 2 wipes.
So, Gene, I think the reason why maybe I liked it more is it's more of a documentary, I think.
Well, Young Guns had real characters in it. I don't know if you know this. Billy the Kid was a real person.
Gene Hackman's a real person.
So, Gene, with a wipe score of 1.08 wipes, that now ties this in the 56th spot with 7, another Morgan Freeman movie, True Lies, White Men Can't Jump, and the epic Blood In, Blood Out.
That's high praise, man. I'm a big fan of Blood In, Blood Out.
Good film. Really, really good.
That's the most patronizing thing you've ever said on this podcast.
No, there's a real. I thought it was going to be honestly Oscar just award bait. I thought it was going to be a really drawn out, shitty story. Clint Eastwood unoriginally being a gunslinger, and I got something else. So it wasn't what I was expecting.
Good pick, Scott. Good pick. All right, Big D, what do we have coming up next week?
So, Gene, next week in this feature film based on the hit animated series, the third graders of South Park sneak into an R-rated film by ultra-vulgar Canadian television personalities Terrence and Phillip and emerge with expanded vocabularies and leave their parents and teachers scandalized. When outraged Americans try to censor the film, the controversy becomes a call to war with Canada, and Terrence and Phillip end up on death row, with only the kids left to save them. Commissioned by Marco P. and Flavor Dave. It was released in 1999, and it also won a prestigious MTV Movie Award for Best Musical Sequence.
And almost won an Academy Award, except it was beat by Tarzan, that Phil Collins Tarzan song.
That is a good song. It is a good song. I am so small, but I've dun dun dun.
Clearly memorable.
Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, hold on. I've had my arms around you, and don't be far. Oh, I will. Oh, fuck.
Ladies and gentlemen, COVID-19.
No. If I just saw the name of it, I would know it, but I can picture it.
All right, thanks, Mark.
Oh, it's by your side. By your side. I didn't even Google it. I'll be right here by your side. That's what he said. Yeah.
Go with him. Well, Marco P., Flavor Dave, thank you for the upcoming commission. Scott in Friendswood, Texas, thank you for commissioning Unforgiven. Thank you, King B, for joining us on this podcast as our special guest. That concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat the Movies. You can email us, host@shatthemovies.com. And if you'd like to leave us a voicemail, just go to shatpod.com and use the SpeakPipe feature to record from any device. King B, if they want to find you on social media, where do they go?
I just started a new Instagram account. Stockholm_sweethearts. Maybe Google how to spell Stockholm, some of you. It's a brand new Instagram account where I will post screenshots of conservative woman dating profiles to showcase their winning personalities. Check it out.
You can.
I'm joining it right now.
It's really the highlight of my day.
Is it really?
And he is committed to this shit. He updates more than we do.
And I've got some rules. They have to be somewhat good-looking women, and my verbal abuses or critiques of them have nothing to do with their looks. We are really only. I make fun of one girl's, two girls' haircuts, but beyond that, it's really just an examination of the ugliest first impression a human being can make. I am astounded that this is what people have come to. Check it out.
Other than that, you can support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, buying our merch, or by commissioning your own movie. Find all that information by visiting our website, shatpod.com. Also, check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Lovecraft Country, Westworld, True Detective, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen. Find all that information on our website, shatpod.com/TV, wherever fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe, and if you stop by iTunes, please leave a 5-star review. That helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-hosts, the King Bee, Big D, and Ash, I'm Gene Lyons. Join us next week for the following movie.
Once upon a time, a man drew a little mouse, and his animated vision enchanted children of all ages. This summer, that man will be spinning in his grave.
Oh my God, why?
Paramount Pictures and Warner Brothers present
Dude, sweet.
South Park.
This is gonna be the best movie ever. Hooray!
Invading.
Eric, did you just say the F word?
Did he say the S word?
Young man, did you just say the Q word? We have to get you children off of foul language.
Your theater.
The machinery of the bee chip emits a small shock of electricity whenever an obscenity is uttered.
This summer.
You're late, Cartman. I had to ride my back here. My behind is killing me. You're behind? I have to stay behind because I get shocked if I say...
Kyle Broslovsky.
This is sweet.
Stan Marsh.
Where do they come up with this stuff?
Eric Cartman.
That movie has warped my fragile little mind.
Kenny McCormick. Chef.
Have you ever heard of the Emancipation Proclamation?
I don't listen to hip-hop.
Satan.
Is sex the only thing that matters to you?
Yeah! I love you.
And Big Gay Al.
You big fillies!
On June 30th.
Throw the switch, Mr. Garrison.
Hey, I'm supposed to be anonymous.
It's not just another day in the park.
Son, we accidentally replaced your heart with a baked potato. You have about 3 seconds to live.
South Park. Bigger, longer, and uncut.
Tell them we'll have punch and pie. We're not gonna have punch and pie. My bill will come if they think we have punch and pie. Ooh. We've got to see this movie, dude.
Fat Mexican butt fucking. Well, it's not butt fucking, I guess.
I bet there was some of that.
All right.